Deduction or credit? Are they the same? Are they different? Which is better if you're a W-2 or if you run a business? What about if you're a real estate investor? All of these different things that you will likely think of when you are doing your own taxes and determining should you be trying to shoot for deductions or credits. Hey, my name's Matt and I'm a CPA that runs a firm called TrueBooks where we specialize in tax and accounting, specifically for real estate investors, small business owners, content creators, and really just small to medium-sized businesses. And this is a question that we get a ton is, hey, is this deductible or is this a credit towards my tax bill? And so I think in this video, I really just want to break down the difference between the two. Now, there are hundreds and thousands of types of tax deductions, and there are hundreds, we'll say, or a ton of different tax credits, but they are treated very differently in the aspect of how does the math actually shake out on your tax return when you have a deduction versus a credit? Now let's start with deduction. I have a few examples here, such as mortgage interest deduction, charitable contributions, that's a deduction, medical expenses, home office, and other business write-offs, aka deductions. And that's another thing too, is there's a lot of people that misuse the term write-off and conflate that with credit or deduction and things like that, when in reality what they mean is a write-off is similar to a deduction. And what a deduction is that is lowering the income that is ultimately subject to tax. So for example, let's say that you make $100 and you have something that is $10 that is deductible. You would subtract from that $100 that $10 expense item, and now you would be down to $90 of taxable income. So then you would only pay tax on the $90 left of income. So you see what the deduction did, it brought you down from what your gross was down to a net taxable amount. And that is the main difference as to why a deduction is different than a credit. You'll see that a deduction comes off of your gross amount and brings you down to that net. Now let's talk about credits. Here are some examples of some different tax credits. You have the child tax credit, the American Opportunity Tax Credit, the Earned Income Tax Credit, Lifetime Learning Credit, Energy Efficient Home Credit, everybody loves that one, and things like the Premium Tax Credit. You'll see that there's a ton of different types of credits, but again, what I want to focus on here is what is the difference between a tax credit and a tax deduction. Now remember, tax deductions are simply lowering what that gross amount is to a lower amount that is now subject to tax. So again, $100, $10 tax deduction gets you down to $90. Now that $90 is what you owe tax on. A tax credit works like this. Let's say in that same scenario, you have something that's at $100 and then you have a $10 tax deduction, so it brings you down to $90. Now you are going to pay tax ultimately on the $90. And let's say that for ease of example, that it's 10% and that is $9 in tax. Well, if you had a $5 tax credit, that is going to come directly off of your tax bill, not that gross amount. So a tax credit is a dollar for dollar reduction in the actual tax bill that is ultimately calculated after your deductions. So if you think of the flow of how this works, you have a gross amount in this example of that $100. You have a $10 tax deduction, which brings you down to $90. And then let's say the tax bill on that is $9, 10%. If you had a $5 credit, that again would come directly against the $9 that you owe in tax. And let's say it's for $5, it would bring down your tax bill to $4. Now there's a ton of rules that govern if you're eligible for certain credits or if you're eligible to take certain deductions. But again, I just wanted to make it clear as to how they're treated on the actual tax return. Now to the $1,000,000 question of which is better, there's honestly no right answer, and it's really both, because for your tax situation, you want to try to find a way to optimize your deductions, take as many deductions as you can that you are entitled to that are legal, obviously, but then why not also couple that with taking a lot of deductions or everything that you can with also some tax credits? Are there some situations where you'll have to juggle the two and consider what happens if you take this credit to the potential deductions that you take and vice versa? Yeah, that's with anything in tax. But it's ultimately not one being better than another. It's you want to try to find a way in your tax situation to optimize making sure that you're taking the max of each. And this is where choosing the right CPA is important, because there are certain tax credits that some CPAs are not familiar with because their client base doesn't help them with those types of credits. So we're in the real estate space. So somebody taking a solar energy credit for putting solar on their house is very familiar to us versus the guy or gal down the street who don't handle real estate clients. They may not even be familiar with something like that. So just something to remember, that when you go work with a the CPA, you're not focused on, I want to use whichever's better. You need to find a way to maximize both, making sure that you're taking your deductions while also being entitled to the credits that you're entitled to too. Now, if any of this in this video has you a little uneasy or just even more confused, think no further than just obviously hiring a good tax professional to do this for you. I think it's important just to highlight that you understand the difference in how they're being treated and that there's not one that's better than the other. It's just to make sure that you're optimizing both within your tax situation. And as always, if you have any questions or would maybe like us to help you out to determine what deductions or what credits you're entitled to, feel free to reach out to our firm, TrueBooks, and we'd love to help you. As always, if you have any other topics or comments or questions, feel free to drop it below in the comments and we'd love to consider it for the next video. Cheers.